Why you should be wary of Craig Breslow handling the Boston Red Sox offseason moves.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And want to know the best part? It's free. So make sure you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Yes, I said 300, and I promise you I'll tell you a lot more about that a little bit later on today's show. But how much confidence do you truly have in Craig Breslow and the Red Sox front office to handle this offseason the right way? Plus, why Pete Alonso feels like a necessity for Boston this offseason, and should the Red Sox bring back Lucas Giolito? So this 2025 season for the Boston Red Sox certainly came with positives. It also came with negatives. I actually outlined the positives and negatives of this season the other day on the show, if you want to go back and check that out. But obviously, there were expectations for this Red Sox team heading into the season, and the expectations for this team changed over the course of the season, particularly after Rafael Devers was traded to San Francisco. The whole outlook on the 2025 Boston Red Sox changed, with people thinking that the Red Sox really were not going to be able to make a deep playoff run. And what really came to light through the course of this Red Sox playoff run that they somewhat went on was that they need more power in their lineup in particular, and that there were glaring holes in this roster that just hadn't been addressed. And now there's pressure on Craig Breslow going into this offseason to go out and make the appropriate moves to add to this team and make them true World Series contenders going into 2026. So you should definitely feel wary of Craig Breslow until he fully proves that he's capable of building a World Series team. Now, this isn't a knock on everything he's done, because he truly has made some good moves to put this Red Sox team in a good spot. For example, bringing in Aroldis Chapman, taking the chance on him. Nobody thought he was going to have as good of a season as he had in 2025. Trading for Garrett Crochet. You go back and do that trade 10 times out of 10. Yes, they gave up some good prospects. Yes, catching prospect Kyle Teal is turning into a stud, but you needed a true number one starting pitcher. And with the productivity that you got from Garrett Crochet this season, you do that same trade every single time. So that was a good move. Bringing in Alex Bregman, who made a difference both on and off the field. That's another good move by Breslow. Obviously, in the last month or so of the season, his offensive numbers decreased and he wasn't as productive as he was prior to getting hurt. And the injury most likely made an impact on that. But the difference he made off the field and the way that he kind of served as a mentor for a lot of the younger players like Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer, and Roman Anthony, who really looked up to him, that's not something that you can just get out of anybody. The way that he was able to be there for the younger guys on this team was massive and made a huge difference. So notable changes, bringing in Justin Wilson, who ended up being a pretty good reliever out of the bullpen, trading for Steven Matz, who helped contribute out of the pen in the second half. The Red Sox bullpen led the American League in earned run average in 2025. So he certainly did a good job of fixing the bullpen. Now, the biggest issue that I have with Craig Breslow right now is, does he have the willingness to truly go out and fill multiple holes at once to get this team to where it needs to be? Because you look at the offseason he had last year, he got a true number one starting pitcher. He got a good free agent bat in Alex Bregman, and he got a couple good relievers. So he was addressing multiple areas, but it's the idea of truly going all out that I still am hesitant about when it comes to him in this Red Sox front office. Because you even look at the trade deadline he had and how it was very underwhelming. Yes, Steven Matz was a good pickup, but the other person they traded for was starting pitcher Dustin May, who hasn't had a great track record as of late due to injury and due to the fact that he was struggling with the Dodgers prior to being traded to Boston. And the Red Sox made no other moves. And that could have been because there was hesitancy about how far this Red Sox team could go in the postseason. So the thing is, when it comes to this Red Sox team and its abilities, maybe they didn't feel like they wanted to go all out at the trade deadline and completely deplete the farm system to try to make a run in 2025 because they didn't think it was realistic. But my problem is, how much longer can you go with saying this Red Sox team doesn't have a shot at winning the World Series? At this point now, you got a team that went to the postseason and overcame injury after injury after injury this year to get there. So you now need to go out and make moves that need to be made to make this a true World Series contending team. And that's what I don't know that Breslow and company would do. There's a lot of really aggressive moves that they could make, but in Breslow's tenure so far, he really hasn't talked about a team that truly is a World Series contender. He really hasn't made comments like, this team 100% is a World Series contending team. It's always been, we're getting there. We're making some moves that could put us in a better position to do that. But if you're subtracting a guy like Rafael Devers and you're not really adding productivity, it's tough to justify trusting him moving forward. And yes, they thought that Roman Anthony was going to replace Rafael Devers' bat, which granted, for sure, prior to Roman getting hurt, he was kind of the heart of the Red Sox offense, who was providing a lot of value at the plate. But the problem with that is that he was a rookie, and you don't want to have to trust a rookie to carry your offense. And that was something that Breslow and company said they were trying to avoid, was having the rookies be the fuel for the offense. And that was exactly what was going on, because it was at the point where nobody else was stepping up, and then the offense was winning games because of Roman being in the lineup. And then as soon as he comes out of the lineup because he's hurt, uncoincidentally, the Red Sox offense started to struggle. So that was one of the biggest issues that I find with Breslow, is that maybe he has a little bit too much confidence in some players to the point where it would hold him back from making moves that are appropriate. Now, he did address the Red Sox offseason and what the biggest areas of need are. And he said 100% that they have to examine their defense because they led the league in errors, which obviously is not ideal. He said he thinks the outfield defense was the best in baseball, but the infield defense is something that he plans to address this offseason, as well as addressing the offense and saying that they need more pop in the lineup, which is good. That's good that he understands that that's an area of need. He did say the team ranked highly in many offensive categories, but their strikeout rate with runners in scoring position was an issue. And that issue became very apparent down the stretch because the team just consistently failed to drive in runners, and it truly held them back. And Breslow also did mention that adding a source of home runs to the lineup is something that they'll take into consideration, because home runs do represent a significant portion of runs scored in the postseason. And it is very hard to win in October if you can't have guys who can get those big, powerful hits. So the Red Sox, because they lacked home run threats in 2025, that's something that Breslow is going to look at going into 2026. So at least he understands some areas of need, but my worry is that he'll be all talk and he won't execute on actually pulling the trigger on addressing those needs. Now, he did have a good offseason last year, didn't have a good trade deadline. So we do have to see another offseason to really be able to evaluate him for sure. But if he goes into this offseason, makes a couple small moves, but doesn't really make any moves that are super impactful, then I'm going to start to question why he's in the position that he's in, because This is a team now that has shown you they have the basis and the foundation to go places. Now you need to go and make big moves to add to that. And I'm hesitant to feel like he'll actually do that because he truly has yet to be insanely aggressive when it comes to adding all kinds of people that can help improve the team. Don't be afraid to trade people, which is something I will give him credit for. He's definitely shown that he's not afraid to trade players if need be, like making a big splash and trading Rafael Devers. He's definitely not afraid to trade prospects to get players that he needs to come to Boston. However, is it top tier players? Not always necessarily. Garrett Crochet was a very successful trade that he made. Now continue to do that. Go out and get a true number 2 starting pitcher this offseason. Go out and pay free agents. Don't rely too much on your players you already have. Yes, you have a young core that can continue to develop. Focus on developing those guys, but don't go out there in 2026 with essentially the same lineup. And that's something I'm challenging Breslow to do this offseason is go for the biggest moves. Make this team a true contender. They are a big market team. Make a statement in this offseason so that people come into the season in 2026 saying the Boston Red Sox are a true threat this season. And one player who could really help change that for the Boston Red Sox and help make them a true contender is Pete Alonso. Why should he be a necessity going into this offseason? The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. You can get rich, I'm just saying. So we are officially in the Boston Red Sox offseason. Now, this is a slow part of the offseason, and it gets tough because you're watching other teams succeed in the playoffs, wishing it was your favorite team, and then your favorite team gets eliminated, and then you're hungry to see the offseason moves that they make, and you have to wait because free agency negotiations can't start. Players can't talk about opt-outs or opt-ins. So it's going to be a long next few weeks. But once the craziness starts, the Red Sox need to be right in the mix and eyeing the top-notch free agents. This is a team that needs to be able to say going into 2026 that they are a lot better than they were in 2025. Saying you made the playoffs in 2025 is great with a young team, but now you need to take it further than that. And the taking it further than that is something that Craig Breslow needs to show and prove to the fan base that he is willing to do. And one player that he could really make a statement by targeting and actually getting is Pete Alonso, because you could say that the Red Sox are interested, and this is something that has gone on for a while, really over the last few years with the Red Sox when it comes to their off seasons, is they'll be reported to be in on a player, but how in are they really when ultimately those players end up going elsewhere? And Pete Alonso is no doubt going to be a highly desired offseason target for a lot of teams. He put together a really impressive 2025 season with a .272 batting average, 38 home runs, 126 runs batted in, and an .871 on base plus slugging over 162 games. He also had 170 hits, 41 doubles, and 61 walks, leading the National League in RBIs and tying for the league lead in doubles. Notably, he played in all 162 games. So for one, he's somebody who the Red Sox wouldn't have to really worry about being injury prone because he's likely going to be able to keep himself healthy, if not for all, at least for a good portion of the season to make it worth it. And he's a durable player, which is really important. This was a career high .272 batting average. This was his best batting average year. So he's coming off a really good season, which is another reason why teams are going to really be looking to sign a player like that. His 126 RBIs were the 6th most by a New York Mets player in a single season. He also became the first Mets player to record 2 seasons with 45 or more home runs and achieved his 3rd season with 40 or more homers. He was named the National League Player of the Week for the period ending July 30th. So lots that he accomplished this year. And why would he be a great fit for the Boston Red Sox? Because he is a player, for one, that you don't have to worry about because of the injuries, like I mentioned. And for number 2, the fact that he had a really good season in 2025 would bode well, likely for 2026, in that he probably would be able to have another productive season in 2026. And this just feels like he's the right guy at the right time for this Red Sox team. He's played in the 2nd most games of anybody in MLB over the past 4 seasons, hitting the 4th most homers of any player. The models might not suggest it's worth allocating such a big chunk of change to a corner infielder, but some of those same narratives were also in play when they signed Alex Bregman, and they still did it anyway. And they cannot say they don't want to spend money or don't have money, because they certainly do have money, given that they were able to spend it on what they spent on Bregman and extend guys like Roman Anthony and Garrett Crochet. He may go back to the Mets. There's definitely a possibility. I mean, nobody knows what the future is going to hold. I'm sure the Mets will definitely be in the mix of trying to retain him, but he definitely cares. He shows up every single day, and he's a really good teammate. He's just a gamer, and he answered every critic. When he was terribly treated in the offseason, he responded in a big way with his play on the field. He's not a guy who's going to give a lot of attitude off the field if he's not playing well. He's just going to let his performance speak for itself. And if the Mets don't want him or aren't able to retain him, if he's not interested in going back there, somebody's going to get a really good baseball player out of this guy, and somebody who just wants to win and is hungry. And for a guy like him, he could absolutely thrive in a place like Boston. Pete Alonso feels like he's meant to play in a really big market, and he got a taste of that being in a big market in New York. So now he can go to another big market in Boston and really help put the Red Sox over the top. There are going to be other teams that are in on him, because the Astros, Yankees, Giants, Mariners, and Rangers are all rumored to be interested and be possible fits for him. But it's just going to be a little bit interesting to see if the Red Sox are truly in the mix or not, because they need to offer him big money if they want him. They can't try to just cheap him out and hope that he decides to come to Boston because he wants to. They are going to need to pony up and offer him a big chunk of change. 5-time All-Star. He was a free agent last winter and didn't find a multi-year 9-figure contract to his liking. So he ended up returning to the Mets, who gave him a 2-year, $54 million deal with an opt-out clause, and he's exercising the opt-out. Homegrown Mets star who spent 7 seasons in Queens, and this year, when he became the franchise's all-time home run leader, he surpassed 8-time All-Star Darryl Strawberry. So this guy is the real deal. 30 years old, and he had those 38 home runs, which was the 8th best in the majors, and his 126 runs batted in was second only to Philadelphia Phillies slugger Kyle Schwarber. So there are multiple reasons why he would be a good fit for the Red Sox, not only because he's a gamer, which could really help set the tone for the attitude in the clubhouse, but also he has power. The Red Sox don't have a lot of power in their lineup right now. And Craig Breslow said prioritizing bringing in somebody who could hit home runs would definitely be something that makes sense for the Red Sox this offseason. Yes, you need to be able to manufacture runs like the Red Sox do, but you also need to be able to couple that with the long ball and being able to hit those home runs. And that's something that Pete Alonso could provide to help stabilize the Red Sox lineup, is he could be a guy who not only hits well, but hits far and deep and could provide some much needed power for the Red Sox, especially a team that late in the season was struggling to drive in runs with runners in scoring position. You could solve a lot of those issues by bringing in Pete Alonso. Also, he's a first baseman, and the Red Sox first baseman situation as it is right now is a question mark because of Tristan Casas's injury that he faced in the beginning of May of 2025. and his situation still being up in the air. The Red Sox don't know for sure if he's going to be ready to start the 2026 season. And even if he is, do they feel confident in his ability to bounce back and be reliable? Because he was not hitting well at all prior to getting hurt. He struggled in April for this Red Sox team. So how confident are they truly in his ability to be the everyday first baseman? Pete Alonso just feels like he makes sense for the Boston Red Sox because he could help you address a lot of areas, because then you would have a steady everyday first baseman who generally stays really healthy, wants to win, and thrives in big market environments. I mean, we're talking about this guy who really performed in the home run derby and took that so seriously. I mean, that's a big stage to perform on too. The guy craves that type of energy, and the Fenway Park crowd and the way that people there get really into it, he could really thrive and feed off of that. His personality just feels like it belongs in Boston, and this just feels like it makes too much sense to turn down. Yes, you have to keep environment in mind. Sometimes players adjust differently to different environments, so there's no guarantee that he'll be able to come to Boston and just jump in and immediately make a big impact. It could take him a little bit of time to get going. However, when it comes to him and his abilities, he is the type of player who can adapt. And I really like that about him, because having that adaptability can make you adjust, hopefully more seamlessly, to playing in a different environment. So now here's my concern. My concern is that because he makes too much sense for the Red Sox, they're not going to end up getting him, because they're not going to want to spend the amount of money that it's going to need to take to get him. Because we can talk about all these hypotheticals, and we've done this before over the last few years where we've said, wow, that player would be a great fit for the Boston Red Sox. And then we don't end up getting said player because they end up going somewhere else, because it's come to find out at the end of the day, the Red Sox weren't willing to offer that player the type of money that they were looking for. But at what point are you willing to? Pete Alonso is a great fit for the Boston Red Sox and could help solve multiple issues and make your lineup a lot better, because it really provides that power boost that the Red Sox have a complete lack of right now. So they 100% need to prioritize getting that man in the Boston Red Sox uniform. If they don't, it's incredibly disappointing. And speaking of players who are unknown this offseason, what's the deal with Lucas Giolito? Should the Red Sox bring him back to run it back in 2026? What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence. Pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor trusted medications in one dual action formula, so you can go the distance. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. So here we are, contemplating offseason scenarios for the Boston Red Sox. It's always something that gets so difficult because you want to feel confident that they will go out and get all of the players that we want them to get. But it's hard to feel confident in that when this Red Sox front office really hasn't shown a lot of that urgency over the last few years to go out and get those types of players. Pete Alonso makes too much sense for the Red Sox, but I don't trust that Breslow and company are going to decide to really go out and spend the money on him, which, again, they have money to spend now that they don't have the Rafael Devers contract in the books. There's just really no excuse for them to not go out and spend money on a player who could give them a huge boost and help solve the first base problem. It really would look terrible on the Red Sox if they don't get that done. Now, the other big thing I'm looking at is the pitching. It's pretty obvious that the Red Sox need a number 2 starting pitcher. Garrett Crochet, no doubt, is the number 1. Brian Bayo will still be in the rotation, but he's more of a number 3 starter at this point. Lucas Giolito is somebody the Red Sox could consider bringing back, but even if they do, you can't really bank on him being your number 2 starter. Tanner Houck is out for the year, most likely, but you do have other players coming back from injury. Richard Fitz, Hunter Dobbins, that presumably could work their way into the rotation, and you have the high upside guys up and coming like Kyle Harrison, Peyton Tolley, and Connolly Early, who also could see spots in the starting rotation. But my problem would be if the Red Sox bank too much on Brayan Bello turning into a number 2, or Lucas Giolito coming back and still pitching at as high of a level as he did in 2025, because he was certainly one of the biggest surprises from the Red Sox 2025 season. Nobody really expected him to be as effective as he was. He certainly was up and down in 2025, but overall, he was a very steady presence for sure as the team's number 3 starter in the regular season. His 3.41 ERA ranks 3rd among all qualified Red Sox starters this year, and his 2.0 F WAR, wins above replacement, ranks just above Brayan Bello's 1.9 regular season metric. So obviously he had a good year, as did Brayan Bello, but neither of them are quite at the level to where I would trust them to be a solid number 2 regularly. Brayan Bello, I think, is getting there. He just had too inconsistent of a September for me to really feel like he's there yet. And with Lucas Giolito, how do we guarantee that he's going to have that same dominant of a season? Because of a contract incentive that he reached at 140 innings pitched, Lucas Giolito is set to be a free agent this winter, assuming that he declines his end of a mutual option and wants to explore. His strong performance could put him in position to demand a bigger contract, but there is a middle ground that could get him back in Boston for 2026. Now, here's the thing. His postseason elbow injury also complicates things because the Red Sox did expect him to be available to start Wild Card Game 3 in the Bronx, but it was not to be after he experienced elbow discomfort and had to be ruled out for the series. The good news is scans revealed no structural damage and it wasn't a serious injury, which does bode well for him when it comes to his impending free agency. No, he is a good short-term fit for the Red Sox right now. They definitely don't need to bring him back to be competitive next season, and it would definitely be a mistake if they bring him back with the idea of him being their number 2 starter. I just think that's too risky. If you are a team that's trying to build a World Series contender, you want to bring Lucas Giolito back if that's what you decide, under the assumption that he's going to be a back-end starter. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. You first of all need to make sure he's going to be healthy, and you can't just bank on him being healthy all season. And for 2, I just don't see him pitching consistently enough to be considered the sure number 2. So if the Red Sox want to bring back Lucas Giolito, by all means they can, but they still need to go out and acquire a true number 2 starter. And that's kind of somebody that has to come externally, because we haven't seen enough yet from guys like Harrison, Early, and Tolley to say decisively right now that any of them could fill those holes as a number 2 starter. And the potential is certainly there. They have really good stuff, but they're still young and they're still developing, and you can't bank too much on there. You need to go out and get a true number 2 starter that you can couple with Garrett Crochet that'll likely come outside the organization. With all of that being said, and the number of guys who could work their way into the rotation, you also have a couple top prospects that are nearing the majors right now in Louis Perales and David Sandlin, both of which are playing well in AAA and have shown that kind of potential. So other players to be excited about. The thing that Lucas Giolito would help with is that he is a playoff tested veteran who can bring stability to a rotation that has been very topsy-turvy the last few years. With Tanner Houck and Hunter Dobbins most likely being out for most, if not all, of next year due to injuries, I think they do have higher hopes for Hunter Dobbins returning sooner than Houck, so that's not completely out of the question. But as of right now, they're kind of having to plan for him not being part of that rotation. And also the fact that they're relying on rookies in their first full season in the majors, that's kind of a slippery slope for the Red Sox to deal with. There's a lot of question marks there and a lot of risk there. So if Giolito and the Red Sox could agree to a short-term deal to bring him back for next season, he could truly be a valuable anchor in the back of the rotation. It would really feel like things are a little bit more solidified when it comes to that back end of the starting rotation, instead of feeling like you're just taking chances on guys and hoping that they give you the level of productivity that you need. Giolito turned 31 in July, and he obviously doesn't have the most sparkling track record because he missed all of 2024 with an injury and then the entire postseason in 2025. And from 2021 to 23, his ERA was a 4.89 in 346.0 innings. It was a half decade ago in 2021 that he last pitched like an ace, which is crazy if you really think about it. His expected stats also betray his actual on-field performance this season. His expected ERA of 5.04 and FIP of 4.17 are both much higher than his actual ERA, and he rates below the 50th percentile in every single highlighted statistic on Baseball Savant, which is very much a bit of a concern because it's basically saying that he's below average. It is easy enough to mitigate all of that and kind of brush it aside if you're committing to a short-term deal with him. But if he tries to cash in on his 2025 results and demands anything longer than probably a 2-year deal, then the Red Sox would be right to hold off and maybe be hesitant about that, especially with all of the young pitching talent that they have in their farm system. So long story short, 2026 figures to be the first year of true planned contention for this current Red Sox core. So having a veteran who can stabilize the back of the rotation, even if he's a little bit more expensive, but it's a 1 or 2 year deal, could be valuable insurance in case somebody isn't working out or ends up getting hurt. But the thing that they don't want to do is commit to something too long term or commit to him with plans that he's going to be a number 2 or number 3 starter, because that just shouldn't be the case. They need to go out and get better starting pitchers who they trust to be more efficient in 2026. But I'm not opposed to bringing him back on a short-term deal as a veteran who could help stabilize that rotation in the back end, and it would help take pressure away from some of those younger, less experienced pitchers who are still trying to grow into their game. So we'll have to see how things go, but be wary of Craig Breslow. Hopefully he makes some statement moves this offseason to help improve this team, just like he did in 2025, and he hopefully isn't afraid to revamp this roster as needed. So hope you continue to tune into Locked On Red Sox and make it your first listen of every single day. Locked On MLB Game Night is still continuing all the way through the World Series. You can catch that show to get local analysis on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So make sure that you do that and head to that show right after this. Keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.